Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome back to another one of my videos. I am Blitz, and today I'm going to be talking about the Centurion 7-1. Now, the reason I wanted to make a video on this tank today is because, as you guys know, a couple of weeks ago, I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars getting the VK90 from the Blitz fair. And when I was spending all that money, of course, I was opening up countless numbers of chests. And those chests, Wargaming decided, you know what, let's give Droodles hundreds and hundreds of credit boosters that have no point in his garage because he already has all the tier 10 vehicles in the game. And I'm like, thank you so much, Wargaming. This is just exactly what I want today. Thank you. You really complete my desires. So I now have like 2,000 credit boosters sitting in my garage. I'm like, what am I going to make a video on? I have no clue. I've got all these credit boosters. My garage is just filled with them, and I've got nothing to do. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to make some videos on some older tanks in the game, vehicles that really aren't talked about a lot anymore. Vehicles like that E75 you're seeing there, IS-8. A lot of these tanks aren't really talked about, especially Tier 9 tech tree tanks. They're sort of like just stuck in the middle there, and once a YouTuber's made one video on that tank, they're sort of done. And since I haven't made any videos on Tier 9 vehicles really in the game other than like the Premier or just premium vehicles in general, I've decided, you know what? I'm going to make some Tier 9 vehicles reviews because I feel that they deserve some love just like any other tank. And as you guys know, the FE4202 is one of my all-time favorite Tier 10s in the game, and the main reason is because it gets Hesh, which is the exact round I'm shooting this E75 for, and as you can see, I took 550 damage off of him in just a single shot. And that's because this tank gets the exact same gun as the Tier 10, which is what makes it such a devastating vehicle on the battlefield. When you take a look at this tank statistically, you're like, why is the damage per minute so bad? It has 2,367, which is probably the worst Tier 9 damage per minute for any medium tank at that tier. So you're probably thinking when you look at it statistically, why does this tank have such a bad damage per minute? Because it's also not super quick. It only goes about 40 kilometers per hour on average. It doesn't have the best armor. Really, why would it have such a low damage per minute? Well, the reason, of course, is just because, as I said, the Hesh ammo. You can see, again, 501 off that E75. If you don't know what this gun is, it is the unnerfed gun that was on the Chariot tier. Now, of course, this is on a Tier 9 medium tank. It's not on the Tier 8 tank destroyer that pretty much went just as quick as it, but they did nerf it. And this is the original gun that is still very, very menacing to this day, because 440 average damage is just able to whittle your opponents down really, really quickly. And not to mention, it has 231 millimeters of penetration with it. Now, of course, that is with calibrated running, but I would never expect anybody to run this tank with gun rammer. It has such a bad damage per minute already. If you are running gun rammer, there honestly is no point to, because you're losing 21 millimeters of Hesh penetration. That is a very large amount. So I would definitely suggest you run this tank with calibrated or any tank that shoots Hesh, because it's going to greatly increase the amount of damage you can output. You can see, again, 550 damage there. That's just an insane amount of damage. I literally whipped off 1/4 of his hit points in a single shot. Again, 434. You can see I'm not shooting at lightly armored targets either. That is the side of an IS-4. This ammo just eats apart anything it goes up against. This was a very quick match, about 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and I pulled out 4,000 damage. You saw there wasn't really any struggling I had. I was able to easily flank around the enemies I did fight, and as soon as I got to their sides, they were just like butter trying to shoot at. Now, of course, this tank does have the other gun on it as well that gets heat ammo, but nobody really cares about that gun because, of course, it doesn't get that main Hesh ammo. And while you do lose the amount of penetration you would normally get with that heat, it's just so rewarding being able to take off that 440 damage just in a single shot. You're pretty much making the WZ-121 almost useless when you use your Hesh ammo, because 231 millimeters of penetration is nothing to be ashamed of. You can pretty much penetrate any Tier 9 vehicle from the front if you do know how to aim at them correctly. Now, of course, if you're aiming at a tank like an E75 or some super heavily armored vehicle, you're going to struggle quite a bit. But as you saw there, I penned that E75 2 times with the Hesh because I knew where to flank him. I used my mobility, and I use the amazing 10 degrees of gun depression this tank has. And unlike the FV4202, thankfully this tank does have a pretty solid turret. Instead of playing up against tier 10 vehicles, you can see this is one of the perfect matches you could possibly pull out in the Centurion. I'm top on the tier up against pretty much all tier 8 opponents except for the 2 tier 9s they have stuck on their team. And I'm just going to completely demolish pretty much any tier 8 I do come up against with this gun. Because if you sort of compare this tank to an IS-5, I have 231 millimeters of penetration. Every 8.9 seconds, I'll be doing 440 damage. Now that IS-5's got 225 millimeters of penetration, 400 average damage per shot, and it's going to be every 12.7 seconds. So I'm literally out-reloading an IS-5 by about 3.5 seconds with this gun, which pretty much means you can almost imagine just how quickly I will eradicate that tank right off of the playing field. With almost only 3 shells needed, I'll finish off a full health heavy tank without even receiving much damage in return. For a prime example, you can see a T-28 prototype, 463 damage in the first shot, and that's only slightly higher than average damage. Again, I'm going to pull out, use my excellent gun depression and aiming time, 445 damage. And yeah, this tank has excellent gun statistics as well, 1.9 second aiming time, and match that with a .290 dispersion value. It really doesn't even miss that much. And to be honest, I'm starting to like the Centurion more than I'm liking the FV4202, because they have the same gun, and not to mention the Centurion has way better turret armor than the 4202 because this has a pretty solid gun mantlet. And unlike the 4202 where it's only about 220 thick on the entire turret, and while that sounds pretty well armored, you have to remember that tier 10 vehicles, have 250 average pen on average, so they're just easily going to go through the turret like butter. This tank's gun mantlet's about 350, 400 millimeters thick, so even the best heat rounds and APCR rounds of premium tanks aren't going to stand a chance against this tank's gun mantlet. And it still has that 10 degrees of gun depression. It's a really menacing tank. However, there of course are some downsides to this vehicle. There can't just be all good and glorious things about the tank. The first thing, as you can see, is I'm limited to 40 kilometers per hour, which of course is not one of the fastest speeds that you can get on a tier 9 tank. However, I can sort of counter-argue that because it has an excellent power-to-weight ratio with this engine of 20, so you're very easily going to stay up at your top speed, as you can see. As well, though, when you do play up against some tier 10 vehicles, you're going to notice that while the gun armor is pretty good, not the gun armor, but the turret armor is pretty strong in this tank, the hull armor is completely awful because, as it says in the name, it's based off of the tier 8 Centurion. It just has a much better gun. So, unfortunately, when you don't use that gun depression, you are going to melt in the pieces. Your hull armor is only 90 millimeters on the lower plate, about 160 on the upper. Not a lot of spaced armor anywhere on the tank, so HE are going to fly into your vehicle. It's only 20 millimeters thick on the rear. So you can definitely think of how easily this tank will be taken out on the battlefield. And if you do take a look at it, it is not a low-down tank by any means. It's a pretty tall vehicle. So your camo rating isn't spectacular. You are going to be taken out very quickly if you aren't in the right positions and you know where to run the tank. So my advice, if you do pick up this vehicle, which I would highly suggest you do, because even if you're not amazing with Hesh, you can still run the other gun where you still get about 120 millimeters of HE penetration because it still gets the stock Hesh, which most of the British tanks do get on their guns. You still will do pretty good. You got that heat. You'll do very, very well against enemy tanks. And not to mention, I really just love the entire look of all of the vehicles in the line. This was one of my favorite lines to grind up in the entire game. It's just a really fun tank in general. I love the look of it. Gun depression is one of my favorite things to really have on a vehicle. If you don't have gun depression, it's almost sometimes a little disappointing when you try and pull off shots and the gun just misses by a little bit and you miss your shot or you have to back up and they'll penetrate through your turret. 10 degrees will not disappoint you in this tank. So I honestly love this tank, and I'm, to be honest, disappointed in myself that I haven't played this tank sooner because I really should have been. It's an amazing tank, and I would definitely suggest all of you guys do grind down this line to pick up this tank over even maybe the Sheridan that is coming out, because to be honest, this tank will tear apart that Sheridan like butter. However, I'm not 100% sure on that because the Sheridan does have some pretty nasty spaced armor. But other than that, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. As always, make sure to smash that like button if you did. Let me know in the comments down below if you like this video, any other tanks you do want to see me have reviews on, because as I told you guys on my other video, I'm going to start doing reviews on tanks that not a lot of YouTubers like to do reviews on. The tough ones, the tricky ones, the ones that really people don't care about. Because I feel that my job of a YouTuber is to give you guys the content you want to see. If I'm not being a Blitz YouTuber, and of course I'm trying to get a contributor count, I want to help the community out as much as I possibly can. And if I'm just making these videos because I want to make money and grow my YouTube channel, that's really not a good motive. So I'm trying to focus my channel more on you guys. So let me know what tanks you want to have featured in the channel, and I will definitely strive my best to try to get them done. So contact me in Discord. Message me in the comments down below. Let me know, guys. I'm open to any suggestions. But other than that, I hope you did enjoy this video. Smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. We're already at like 5.2 thousand subscribers or something ridiculous. So continue on growing, and I'll see you in the next one.